Hey guys, so Hurricane Neddy is the 8th episode of Season 8. It was written by Steve Young and it was directed by Bob Anderson. The episode focuses on Ned Flanders. After his house and business are destroyed, he goes into a breakdown and needs to learn to express his anger in small bursts. The episode is full of great character moments, amazing jokes, and is very well received by critics. So let's see though, if I think this one is good or bad. So the plot is a little tricky, mainly because it starts off by showing us the Simpsons at first, before eventually shifting to Ned as the protagonist. So at first, I'm just going to cover the opener and the stuff with the Simpsons family, which pretty much equates for the entirety of the first act. So the episode starts off by establishing Hurricane Barbara. Lisa warns Homer about the hurricane, who doesn't believe her at first, or at least doesn't seem to care, but eventually he does and they rush into the house. The family watch the news and go to prepare. The Quickie Mart is under guard and the family get barely any nice food, and Ned seems extremely well prepared, whereas the Simpsons family seem very ill prepared. They go into their basement and try and make some fun, but doesn't seem to work. Homer thinks the hurricane has cleared up and he goes outside to inspect, and he is nearly taken away by a tornado. The family pull Homer back into the basement and Marge goes to pray to God to protect her family, and the storm clears. An act to God, sure, but it works. They exit to see their house is pretty much fine as well. However, as they look over to the Flanders family house, they see it has been destroyed by the hurricane. This is all much longer than an opener, as I said, and it really is just the entire first act of the story, but I'm actually happy that this focuses on the Simpsons at first. I think focusing on Ned would negate that reveal where we see his house destroyed, and focusing on the Simpsons establishes the storm as a plot point as well, and also acts as a nice sort of vehicle into the episode. So starting with them, I'm happy enough with, but now we shift onto Ned. So now, the story, like I said, focused on Ned Flanders. So let's analyse the plot through good old Neddy. So Ned is distraught by his destroyed house. He rescues his family from the wreckage and heads to the rescue centre at the church. Maud is optimistic to Ned and tells him that they'll get back on their feet by earning enough money through the Leftorium. But on the news, they see it being looted by people. Ned tries to get advice from Lovejoy at night, but he doesn't really give anything, and then he goes to the altar to the church and asks God why is he punishing him after he's been one of the best followers he possibly could. I mean, he even kept kosher just to make sure. Marge visits Ned at the rescue hall and tells him something incredible has happened. She takes him back to the old neighbourhood and reveals the town has helped rebuild his house. Ned thanks everyone and declares they've made him the happiest man in Springfield, but when he goes to inspect the house, he finds it's not all perfect. There are many shortcuts that were taken in rebuilding the house, and I really love this scene. I just love how it starts with that nail, which is loose, before eventually it ends up with that tiny hallway to the master bedroom. Homer and Flanders exit the house, and Homer asks Flanders what he thinks, and then the whole house collapses to Ned's horror. Ned tries to calm himself down as his glasses break, and he just can't, and he bursts out in this epic rant. He goes off at all the Simpsons family members and a few Springfielders as well, and I gotta say, this rant is a perfect plot point, and it's just amazing. It's actually in my top 10 Simpsons moments of all time for sure. Ned is just not holding back whatsoever, and I think it both serves as a really funny scene, but a logical point for the character. Flanders drives off after his rant, listens to some tunes, and drives right through the gates of the Carnwood Mental Institution. And I love this scene too, it's the perfect thing to cap off. Ned is just so calmed and relaxed, and it's a great juxtaposition from the earlier ranting scene. He commits himself and voluntarily is dragged off kicking and screaming. Eventually, Dr. Foster arrives and reveals to Ned that he treated him as a kid. We get some footage showing Ned as a destructive youth, and then a flashback showing that his parents gave him absolutely no discipline. In the flashbacks, Foster repeatedly spanks Ned across 8 months. This caused Ned to bottle his anger and only ever express it through his hidely-ho catchphraseerinos. In the present day, Foster explains that the treatment meant that Ned is unable to express any anger at all, and that's why he hit a point and bursted out at his family. Foster invites Homer to irritate Ned and bring out a small burst of anger, and Homer goes on script at first, but Ned is unable to express his anger, so Homer goes off script instead, and Ned lets out, eventually, "I hate the post office and my parents." Foster declares Ned is cured, and he comes out to be met with the entire town, and also makes a really funny joke about running people down with his car if they tick him off. The inciting incident is of course Ned losing his home, and this works really well to set the high stakes for Ned. The plot point 1 is Ned questioning his faith and asking God why he's punishing him. This clearly sort of sets his path. The midpoint, although it means that Ned is not really active, is the rebuilding of the house and then it collapsing. The plot point 2 is Ned committing himself. It is the real low point for Ned. That leaves the climax and resolution of pretty much just Ned being cured. Now, I think this plot is good. I love it a lot. But I think it de-escalates from the moment Ned commits himself to the hospital. I actually think it would have been way better to rework these scenes. So this is my way of reworking it. So after Ned begins to lose faith, have him start, hidely hoeing and positively jargony, basically saying his catchphrases, basically speaking in tongues. And because of this, he or Maud commits him, or something like that. Foster then tries to treat Ned, but he's unable to express his anger. Marge rebuilds his house, or helps rebuild his house, and hopes that that will help get Ned better. And then that leads to what would be reworked as the climax, as Ned's rant, and finally him being able to express his anger in some way. Now I know that this is like a big thing, but it's kind of like breaking the cap off, right? Now he's expressed a little bit of anger, now he's expressed all this anger, he's able to express little bits. I feel like that could have been a way to rework it as all. The issue I take with the current structure is the goals and the stakes shift. It starts with Ned being homeless, but then it later shifts to Ned not being able to express his anger in small bursts. When he's in the hospital though, he's his kind of normal self. I actually think it could have been funnier if maybe he turned into an asshole and Homer had to somehow calm him down to the point where he isn't so angry and find like a nice middle ground between super nice Ned and super asshole Ned. I just feel like shifting the goals in the third act makes the third act a little bit weak in my opinion. But I gotta say, I do love that rant. Like I said, top 10 Simpson moment for sure. Telling Bart, here's a catchphrase you better learn for your adult years. Hey buddy, got a quarter? Telling Lenny, he doesn't know him but he's sure he's a jerk. And finally Homer thinking that he got off the easiest. So, let's look at those jokes. I could spend a long time going through all the jokes. The rant is the funniest part, which is followed by that scene of Ned just driving through the gates of the mental hospital. Mrs. Glick mistaking Lisa for a pineapple is pretty funny. Grandpa saying he ain't being evacuated but then changing his mind straight away. The bowling alley floating in the air. Marge throwing away that Rubik's Cube in anger. Like I said, the jokes are brilliant. I also really love the joke about the cannibal patient, and guess which one he is. The jokes in the third act though are nowhere near as good as the first and second act jokes. I could list way more to be honest, and if I've missed any of your favourite jokes, let me know. The only joke I'm not a huge fan of is the happiest man in Springfield. That one was just a bit unneeded and I didn't find it very funny. But as a whole, the jokes in this one are really solid. I just feel the momentum of humour kind of slows down in the third act. But that's really due to all of the character stuff we get from Ned. So, let's look at the characters. So the protagonist of this one is clearly Ned Flanders. The first act of the episode he's not very present in, and I would have liked him to be a bit present, but ultimately I think the first act works really well. The first act to me just serves as an extended opener, and it doesn't take anything away from Ned's story. But in the second and third act, we get plenty of Ned. It pretty much entirely focuses on him. This is a great Ned episode, and we get a massive new perspective on him. We understand why he's so nice, why he sometimes says those annoying catchphrases, and why he's also a hardened Christian. It all comes down to his parents. I know this isn't the first time we see his parents, but it is the first time we truly understand their parenting style. Ned's burst into anger was also a great scene, as I've said multiple times, and it's good to finally see this character who is constantly abused actually fight back against the town. Overall, I may go as far as to say this is the greatest Ned Flanders episode, or at least it's definitely the top 10. For Homer, there isn't much to cover really, but he does serve as a sort of antagonist to Ned, and I liked his inclusion at the end with trying to make Ned angry once more. Dr. Foster is a great new addition and serves as a way to exposition dump naturally, and everyone else in Springfield is used sparingly but effectively. I really wished we got some more from Mod, Rod and Todd, like how were they affected when Ned was committed and when he went a bit insane. I'm not sure what they could have done with them, but I would have really just liked one scene with them as all. Overall though, the characters and mainly Ned are used really well. Ned is clearly the standout here, but what do you expect? It's his episode. Anyway, let's move on to that score and answer if this one is good or bad. Okay, so I think Hurricane Neddy is a good episode. Obviously. I love the stuff with Ned and the new perspective we get on him. The first and second acts are solid, even if the first act doesn't focus too much on Ned. The stakes are all there in the beginning and the jokes are piled on for our amusement. But man, that third act is a bit weak. I don't think it's a huge deal or anything. It doesn't make the episode bad or anything, but it feels like having this come after that large rant with Ned is a bit disappointing. They could have restructured stuff or switched up the stakes a little bit or reworked something, but yeah, that's my only real complaint about this episode. So with that, I give Hurricane Neddy a solid 8 out of 10. It's a high 8, but I can't go any higher because of the third act. Now, let's move on to the wheel. So, the next episode I'm reviewing, let's see. So that episode will be... Ooh. 30 Minutes Over Tokyo. Okay.